Good evening. This is GB News, and we are 5 weeks old. We are a fledgling in broadcasting terms. Now, I've no doubt you've read and seen some criticism of GB News. The sets are black and dull and boring. Well, have a look around you. You can see things are changing. Some of the tech issues didn't work on day one. Well, name me a broadcaster that's ever launched that didn't have some tech issues on day one, but they're improving too. And yes, there was a part-time presenter who made a political gesture that wouldn't have been allowed on any channel in the United Kingdom, and he's gone. They're the negatives, but what about the positives? Why am I here? Why have I decided to join GB News full on, not just to come in on a Sunday morning, but to launch this show tonight, Farage, and I'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Well, I'll tell you why. Because I believe in GB News, and I believe in Andrew Neil. I think he is one of the most intelligent broadcasters we've seen in our lifetimes. And I'll tell you what, if it's good enough for Andrew Neil, it's absolutely good enough for me. And the need for GB News has never been greater. There is, for all the talk of diversity, almost no diversity in British broadcast media. They pretty much take the same centre-left, liberal, woke, pro-cancel culture view on virtually everything. It's as if they've forgotten that outside the M25, outside of metropolitan London, there is a very large population of people who have an entirely different view, and yet they're looked down upon, despised virtually, by so many in politics and media in this country. Well, GB News is here very much for those people. We're going to be a voice for those people, and we're going to be, unashamedly, a patriotic television station. So I'll be here every night, taking on the tough stories of the day, taking on stories that other broadcasters actually don't want to touch. They find it all a little bit too inconvenient for their own world view. And I'll give my opinions every day on that, and yes, in sometimes they may well be quite strong opinions. But here's the real point. The real point is I will have guests on that disagree with me. And I want you, please, through GB Views at GB News, to tell me where I'm going wrong, to put me straight, and I tell you what, I'll read them out. I'll do a section every night called Barrage the Farage. I'll take your difficult questions. I'll take your criticisms too. The point is, we want open, free, democratic debate for it to be conducted in a civilised manner. You will, I promise you, hear both sides of every argument, including my own position and my own view, and you then can make your own minds up. I've been involved in the past in some small ventures that have become quite big ventures that have perhaps even changed the course of British politics. And I'm now involved with GB News because we need to change the landscape of British broadcasting. And you know what? We're going to do it. Well, as I've said from the very start of this, this is not going to be an echo chamber. This may well be a television station that is fiercely patriotic, that believes in Britain, that has its own set of values, and is most certainly not part of what happens inside the M25 with too many in politics and media. No, we want to represent the broader country, but we want to make sure that all views are represented, that all debate is held in a civil manner, and that you get the chance to hear both sides of an argument so that you, through critical thinking, can make up your own mind. That's what civilised democracy is supposed to be all about, as opposed to us screaming, hurling abuse at each other because we can't tolerate the fact that somebody else has a different point of view. Indeed, we've reached a point in too many parts of society where we think because someone disagrees with us, they should effectively be cancelled and taken out of public life. And that is what I do not want to tolerate, and I want to see so much better for our children at schools and universities. Let's hear both sides of a debate, and I promise you, on this programme, Farage, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m, I promise you, I will not hold back one little bit on telling you what I think, but you're welcome to come back and barrage the Farage. I'm perfectly happy for you to do that. And Alan on Twitter asked me a question. Why has Boris announced these unlawful COVID passports? Well, because I think the mad scientists are telling him that's what he's got to do. And it's only by threatening that you can't go to the pub and have a drink or go to a nightclub and dance it's the only way they're going to get young people to sign up to the vaccine. And there is slightly more reluctance on the vaccine in young people than there is in older people. And hey, you know, I mean, there are proposals now, not just for coronavirus, but for flu jabs to perhaps be administered this winter to children as young as the age of 2. I mean, it beggars belief, but that is actually what is being talked about. Jack says to me, do you agree with the rule that all over 18s will be barred from nightclubs and big gatherings from September? Also, what do you think the chances of this going ahead actually are? Or will there be another U-turn from the government? Well, Jack, look, you know, they are going to do their... I'm convinced they will do their best to try and make as many people as possible have the double jab. And I've had the double jab. I am not actually a vaccine sceptic. I do accept there are risks with taking the vaccine. Of course there are. There are always risks. But it's about balance of risk. You know, I'm 57. I may not have lived the cleanest possible life. I've had, you know, pneumonia a couple of times. I think for me, the risk is far greater not to have the double vaccine. But I do begin to wonder, and Hugh Osman made this point from Punch Taverns, made this point beautifully earlier on in the show, that you get to people under the age of 30, and actually they're at very, very little risk of this at all. And the idea that we move to children, I mean, I thought adults protected children, not children protecting adults by having the vaccine. So this debate on vaccinating young people has got a lot further to go. How do you think the vaccine rollout would have gone without Brexit? Neil, it would have been an absolute Horlicks, the whole thing. Michael on email asks, where did you get that cracking pair of shoes from? Michael's referring to the Union Jack shoes that I wore to the England versus Italy game at Wembley the other week. And there I was. Now, again, that's what civilised conversation should be. I was in an Italian pizzeria and they were rooting for Italy. I was rooting for England. And you know what? I said to them as we left for the stadium, may the best man win. And what a shame the whole thing was marred by 250,000 people turning up to an event that was ticketed for 65,000. And what do they expect was going to happen with a kick-off time at 8 p.m. on a Sunday when young guys, what were they going to do all day? What were they going to do? Read The Guardian? No, they were going to go to the pub or buy cans of cider and they were going to get smashed, and that's what they did. And they've been doing it for hundreds of years and there's not much prospect of them changing soon. Well, joining me now is Steve Valdez-Simmons, Refugee and Asylum Rights Director at Amnesty International. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Tell me, you saw that footage a moment ago, I hope. Do you think Channel Rescue are doing the right thing in guiding these vessels onto Kent beaches?
Well, I see no particular concern about members of the public assisting people to avoid rocks or their boat overturning if that's necessary. I don't know particularly about Channel Rescue, and one thing I certainly would agree is that if anybody sees people in difficulty at sea, the sensible and appropriate thing to do would be to contact the RNLI, who obviously not only have responsibilities for rescue at sea, but have expertise in carrying that out.
Yeah, and we don't know, and that's the question I'm asking. And by the way, I did ask Channel Rescue to come on this programme. I did send them an invitation and some questions, and we haven't had a response yet. But if they want to come on, they will be very, very welcome to do so. But isn't the fact that behind all of this are some pretty deeply unpleasant criminal gangs, there's big money involved, and in some ways, if we've got organised members of the British public in touch with migrants crossing the Channel, I mean, you can see why some might say that it's actually aiding and helping the traffickers.
Well, I don't see that, quite frankly. I mean, that boat, presumably, if it had been the journey set up by smugglers or traffickers, well, probably not traffickers, because they would be controlling the people on their arrival to abuse them here too. But if it had been controlled by smugglers, then they've long since lost their interest. They've received their funds. They've set people on their journeys. So I don't see it as assisting the smugglers at all.
Now, tell me, we've got 8,000 people so far that have crossed the Channel illegally. I'm saying it could be well in excess of 20,000 this year. I mean, from an Amnesty position, of course, I understand that you do represent and stand up for genuine refugee rights. How many of the people coming into the UK from France, in your opinion, would genuinely qualify as refugees?
Well, let's start with the Home Office's opinion, because they determine claims, and then, as you know, that there are independent appeals against refusals. It's quite clear that over the last few years, the success rates have been well above 50% and indeed are rising, and now somewhere approaching 2/3 of claims are made by people who prove their claims. I'd also add, of course, that the people who make these particular journeys, the ones that you see on the TV with crossing by boat, who are a small minority of the people still who make asylum claims, which, by the way, are still falling, those people have disproportionately high success rates because of the countries from which they come.
Yeah, and yet they've come from a safe country in the shape of France. You see, I keep reading, Steve, I keep hearing reports about poor, desperate people. I mean, just have a quick look at this man that landed on a Kent beach with a crowd yesterday. I mean, he looks like he's won the lottery. He doesn't actually look like somebody... I've seen pictures of people coming, for example, from Uganda in the 70s, who were humble and very grateful to the United Kingdom for letting them come here and live their lives. I mean, what does that image say to you?
Well, it speaks to someone who has an enormous amount of relief at having made what is a dangerous crossing successfully. And let's not make the direct comparisons that you just made with Ugandan refugees. Very important what the UK eventually, albeit under extreme amount of pressure at that time, did. It then provided routes to this country for people to take. That man hasn't been provided with any safe route at all. And indeed, I wonder at, and Amnesty, as you know, has well documented the journeys that many of the people that we see on our television have made, all the way from their countries of origin, often experiencing torture and abuse on the way, and no, not receiving safety in France at all. So if he is feeling a great deal of jubilation at finally arriving here, I can certainly empathise with that.
Well, he knows he's not going to be sent back anywhere. He knows he's going to be looked after. I mean, I can understand why he feels very happy. But I put it to you that the vast majority of these men, and it is overwhelmingly, as you know, men, and particularly young men that are coming, I put it to you that actually these are economic migrants, not genuine refugees.
Well, the data just doesn't bear that out. And if you bother to look at the data, you will see that the great majority of these people show that their claims are successful, that they are refugees. And so what it means is that we are compelling people to take dangerous journeys rather than providing safe routes for them. Yes, it's disruptive and it would be better if it didn't happen. Yes, it's dangerous and everyone would like to avoid that. And yes, of course, it's exploited by highly unscrupulous and ruthless people. And we should all want to deter that. But none of that is what is happening. And so people are driven to make these dangerous journeys because that's all that's left to them.
So what should we do? Just finally, Steve, should we have an offshore processing centre? Would that make more sense?
No, it would be extremely expensive, as the Australian policy has shown. Vast amounts of money processing only a tiny proportion of the people who seek asylum in that country and doing enormous cruelty to them. We should be opening up real and serious routes to seeking asylum in this country, including from northern France, particularly by those people who have family and connections here.
It sounds like a lot of people would come under that plan.
Well, a significant number of people might come under that plan, but the fact remains that this country receives very, very few refugees, including under its resettlement routes. France at the moment is hosting something around 4 times the number of people who have fled persecution and has an asylum system with nearly 4 times the number of people in it. We cannot keep going with that sort of disproportionality. Of course, it leaves some people, like perhaps the man whom you showed in the picture, destitute and excluded because they cannot get into safe systems.
OK, Steve, thank you very much indeed. Well, that was the view from Amnesty International. Don't say that on GB News you don't get both sides of the argument. Joining me tonight on Talking Pints is Charlie Mullins, founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and somebody who I think if I'd met him a few years ago, we might have had a pretty heated discussion. Because, Charlie Mullins, you were I think you were about as opposed to Brexit as I was. By the way, cheers.
Yeah, cheers, fella. So,
good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to have a drink with you, mate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think, actually it's in pubs and bars where people have proper conversations and we can agree to disagree, but do it civilly. But you really, really felt very strongly on Brexit, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was made a massive change to the country and the economy, and even now we're not going to agree on it. I think it's the wrong move, but we have no choice but to get on with it. But it's causing massive skill shortages, and there's already materials have gone up, and delays and shortages, and hell of a disruption. I don't think it's the right move, but maybe a few more pints might agree with me.
Well, we could be here a long time. I don't know. The point about skill shortages really interests me, because one of the things that I think has happened over the last 25 years or so, we've encouraged huge numbers of young people to go to university. Set targets of 50% and all the rest of it. People go to university, and in some cases they shouldn't really be going to university. They're not particularly academic. They get degrees that don't especially help them in the workplace. And
waste of time, aren't they? A lot of them.
Ologies, or whatever they may be. They rack up debt, which they've been charged 6% on. And, I mean, the guys that work for you, the guys that work for you and work hard for you earn a pretty blooming good living.
Yeah, I mean, any good tradesman, anybody does an apprenticeship now will earn loads of money and never be out of work, that's for sure. As you say, it's an old argument, and I think people are starting to see the difference now, the massive skill shortage, and again, caused by Brexit.
Hang on. The point I'm making to you is this, right? We'll come back to Brexit in a minute. We have not been encouraging our young people to go and learn trades and skills. We've almost in a snobby way, looked down at those jobs and said we don't want our kids to do it. What's wrong with us? Because actually, whether it's being in plumbing or bricklaying or whatever it is, people can earn a damn good living. What's wrong with us in this country?
Yeah, well, I just think it's a snobbish way of looking at it. It's like a class distinction thing, and you also got to remember the teachers that have gone to university are just pumping out the same thing. Get the university. Universities are not bothered; they just want bums on seats. There's no necessarily a right job at the end of it. We've got about 70 apprentices with us now, and they're doing great. And just one of them, just the other week, she finished her apprenticeship. She's out as a heating engineer now, earning loads of money.
Yep.
And she's buying her own house already, and she's sort of 20 years of age. So, yourself, you go to university, they often never wind up getting their house for many, many years. So it's not necessarily the right move. I just think you need more people promoting it.
So the skill shortages, I mean, how many, as a percentage of your workforce, how many of those would be overseas nationals?
How many would be what?
How many would be overseas nationals? How many of your workforce would be foreign by birth?
Maybe 5%.
Oh, quite low.
Yeah, very, very low. But I mean, the fact that it doesn't over-affect us, it does affect the general construction industry in general, that there's a massive shortage of skilled tradesmen because they're obviously not coming over no more. So it doesn't...
But let's train our own people.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you must have read my script. That's the obvious thing we have to do more and more now. We've got, as youngsters leave school, they've got to either, unfortunately, go to university, have a job to go to, or go straight into a government-funded apprenticeship scheme. And that's the only way we will sort out the skill shortage.
Well, I have to say, Charlie, I very much hope that we do that, because I feel we became too dependent on foreign labour. And I think we, by the way, university, for the right people, of course they should go. The right... People who are academic, people who need it, want to be doctors, whatever they want to do. Yeah, of course they should go.
That's right, but yourself, I don't want to be disrespectful to some people, but they go to university and they wind up stacking shelves in Tesco's or working in McDonald's, and got a degree which is just no value to them.
I'm afraid I know.
And then you say the massive debt that's there, and also got to look at long term. I think the way that the skill shortage is now is. If you think plumbers are expensive now, just wait for another 3 or 4. You look like that then, Nigel.
Well, your prices, I mean, come on.
No, but you pay for quality. People will always pay for a good service. And, in plumbing, cheapness is the dearest. Are you very sort of hands-on?
I'd rather have one of your boys come and do it. No, I would. Of course I would. I mean, I take the view if I try to do anything with plumbing, I'll make such a mess of it, I wouldn't take that risk. I would not personally take that risk.
But you also got to remember, you say we're expensive. I mean, the fact that we turn up on time with smart outfit, you get the job done, we're very transparent, and your work's guaranteed. I mean, how is that expensive? Are you agreeing with me? I'm not sure.
No, I'm just saying that there is a perception that it's expensive, but I was teasing you a bit.
Yeah, but
you've done well. You've made a lot of money, haven't you?
Well, the business has done very well. I mean, we're turning over 50 mil. It's been a record year. And
despite Brexit. I thought Brexit was a disaster, Charlie. It doesn't sound too bad to me.
Well, it's going to be a disaster, I think, for many other businesses. But already, as I say, materials have gone up. We're waiting long for them. There's a massive shortage and the skill shortage thing. So, we're not out of the woods yet, are we? And you know yourself, there's more worrying things at the moment to worry about than Brexit.
Well, there is. So on Brexit, it's done. You didn't like it, but we now.
Yeah, look, we have to get on with it, and we'll never agree on it. And one of us is wrong, and it's not me.
Well, I have to tell you, is that European lager you're drinking there?
Yeah.
Well, I've got
cheap and cheerful.
English bitter for me. No, we won't agree on it. But the great thing, I think, is, we've had a great big row in this country over Brexit, and a row that went on for year after year after year, which I think was quite debilitating in a way, because all government, all Parliament focused on was this row, to the complete exclusion of everything else. And the fact that's over is great. However, that has been replaced by the pandemic.
Oh, blimey, yeah.
Now, you think Brexit's worse than the pandemic, don't you?
No, I'm not going to say that. No. I think it was quoted that. It's not worse, but
you were misquoted on that, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people have died, and millions of people or thousands of people have died, and it's the worst thing we've ever experienced in our lifetime. And hopefully it's going to change now, and we get through it. But we're not out of the woods yet, as you know. But
your business was an essential business.
That's right. We carried on. We've been busiest year ever. Yeah. Throughout the pandemic, and we've been working all the way through it, and we geared ourselves up, and I think customers realised that we engineers were going out there and taking regular tests and masks and sanitation and footwear, and fortunately we was in that position to do it, and the fact that more and more people have been at home, more and more problems were there. It's just unfortunate that our business has gone great, but so many businesses have suffered.
Well, I mean, this is the point I was making last night here, is that it's the private sector that have paid the cost for this. It's privately owned businesses that have paid the cost for all of this, because the public sector, people aren't going to lose their jobs or lose their pensions, but in the a lot of people have been really hurting. A lot of non-essentials have been hurting really, really badly, and it's almost like the final insult of all of this is, just as we're told that Freedom Day's coming, it's all going to be great, and yet, because of this the pingdemic, as
what a nightmare that's been, isn't it?
And, I read a piece this morning from the boss of Iceland. They got stores all there. They've actually had to close stores.
Down, yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
No, you're right. We've actually got more people off now than in the worst part of the pandemic. We've actually got more off now because they're being pinged like for nothing, and they're taking regular tests. Some of our guys are tested on a regular basis, but obviously they've got to go along with what they're being told and self-isolate. We would normally lose on a sort of Monday 10 to 20%. We're now sort of 30 to 40% people that we're losing.
You're losing a third of your workforce?
Yeah. And again, they're saying is that, I feel good, I'm testing regular, but they've got to follow the guidelines, and thank God we have got guidelines, but it's so disruptive. I don't think it's helping anything, and with the more and more people that have had the jabs, I mean, I presume you've had yours.
I have. No, I'm not an anti-vaxxer or anything like that.
No, I think you just look like one.
Well, being I'm a Brexiteer, of course, I've got my problems, but no, I mean, seriously, this is disastrous, and I cannot for the life of me understand why. If somebody gets a ping, let's say, because they've been near someone that's tested positive, why can't they simply take a lateral flow test? And if they've been double vaccinated, get on with work. And I don't understand this, because we saw this thing at the weekend where Sajid Javid tested positive. We got the results Saturday night. Boris then says he's going to go back to work. 2 hours, 38 minutes later, he U-turns and says he's going to isolate in Chequers, and it's all over the shop. And I just think they got that messaging wrong. You've got a hell of a profile as a businessman. You really have. And it's interesting. As a country, not many business figures do have a big profile. You're one of the ones that does. have you? I mean, do you try and lobby government on these things? How do you? How do you try and influence?
Well, of course. I mean, we come up with, or myself come up with, the no jab, no job, and got a lot of stick at the time, and the government was even knocking us. I think it's the health minister at the time was knocking us, and it's all unnecessary because. Now it's proven point that there's no other way. We're not being offered any other way to get through the pandemic other than the jab. Yeah. It's definitely working, even though obviously cases are going up. But fortunately, the death toll is nowhere near like the 1500s that it used to be at.
It's about 5% of that.
Yeah, well, but that's obviously only due to the fact of the people who are having a jab. And
I think it's the jab. I think. Perhaps also this strain may not be as virulent. I mean, I know there could be lots of reasons, but most people say it is the jab.
Well, it's got to be the jab. I mean, why would it not be that?
The stats do back that up.
And I think it's 60% of people that are going in hospital now have not had the jab. Nobody's saying you can't still get it. It's proven you can still get it, but it's certainly not as severe as what it was. And by the way, I've had my jab. I mean, there was a delay on it because I was out of the country, but couldn't wait to have it done and feel so much more safer and secure with it. And at the end of the day, it's all about people's safety, customer safety, employees' safety, and just the general public in general.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is that most adults over 50, the vast majority have had 2 jabs. Yeah. There are 1 or 2 that object on for reasons of principle, who don't feel happy about it or worried about the side effects of it. But I get it. For people over 50. The balance of risk is that you're much more likely to get all through COVID than you are to have any reaction to the jab. But when it comes, and I was talking to a head teacher earlier, because again they've got a similar problem with isolate. I mean, a million kids off school. I mean, you can't even believe it. But I mean, mathematically, statistically, this disease does not pose a great problem to children at all. I mean, it is absolutely minute. Do you think we should vaccinate school kids as well? I feel uncomfortable about that. I feel uncomfortable that I get it that we vaccinate people that could really suffer very badly and be very, very ill. But we kind of know that kids aren't going to be ill. Do we really want to vaccinate?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to...
Difficult one, isn't it?
I'm not going to put my head on the block here and say...
No, well, listen, we're having a conversation in the park.
What I'm saying, I think we should take the advice of the health ministers and the scientists, and we're being told the vaccine is going to help us, and they're spreading it through the different ages, as you know now, because getting more and more youngsters because of the nightclubs having it done. I think we've just got to take their advice on it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that if we didn't have the jab now, I wouldn't be here now. Wouldn't have been at Wembley the other day.
You were there, were you? I was there too.
Yeah, I went a little in, but it was great. Was you there?
Yeah, I was. I mean, it was inside the ground was fantastic. Outside the ground, it was a bit. Yeah, wasn't good, was it? I mean, one or too many of these, I think. But I couldn't get it. I mean, if you're going to kick off at 8 o'clock on a Sunday, what do you think people are going to do?
Well, that's right. I mean, I
thought that was crackers,
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, we got there, and the good news is, I think it's been a great morale boost for all over the country, and let's enjoy the moment.
No, it was great. I agree with you. It was absolutely great. I mean, it did start off with controversy, the whole taking the knee business, and a lot of England fans didn't like it. And then I noticed towards the, in the later games, the taking the knee gesture happened very quickly, and the fans didn't want to boo their own team. But were you for them taking the knee?
Was I what, sorry?
For the footballers taking the knee, making a political gesture. I didn't like it.
Look, personally, I think it just, sort of stirs up problems and it's unnecessary. But again, what people decide to do is up to them. I mean,
Yeah, it was a difficult one, wasn't it? I mean, Southgate, he stuck to his guns. I didn't really agree with him. He stuck to his guns. And I have to say, that football team, the way they actually generally carry themselves and the way they behave, they're good role models, aren't they?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that the downside was the racist abuse that happened afterwards, which is totally unnecessary, and I think that set us back many years. And it just shouldn't be. I mean, they would have been heroes if they scored, and they want to string them up.
But I mean, you'd have got abused whoever you were, I think, if you missed penalties. But look,
it's so wrong. Why are we a nation of keep knocking people when rather than sort of supporting them and congratulating them?
I think. Do you know what? The Americans celebrate success. and we're really good at knocking it. And I think you've had a fair bit of knocking copy over the years, and I've had plenty as well. So what next for Charlie Mullins? Do you just go on with Pimlico Plumbers, keep going?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I've say we're very busy, and fortunately the company's very successful, and it's continuing to grow, and we're recruiting people, and more apprentices coming on board. We'll also do, you know, a nice bit of charity work.
Yeah.
I'm just going to slip it in. We're helping a young girl at the moment, Chloe, that's suffering with cancer, and
Good for you.
you know, I think all that type of thing makes the business, you know, something that I'm proud of, and proud of the people that work for me. The knockers, are, you know, I mean, the haters are always going to hate me, and the people that like me are always going to like me.
Well, Charlie, thanks for coming in, mate. Well, Charlie Mullins and I, it was pretty civil, wasn't it? I mean, there's no fisticuffs. The Brexit wars, whatever we thought of it, are over, and that is a very good thing. Hopefully, once the pandemic's over, we can all get on. We're trying to make this country a great success. Charlie Mullins, thank you for coming.
Cheers, Nigel.
GB News. Cheers, Mehdi. So about a year ago, I started going out into the English Channel, filming migrant boats coming across, filming something in particular that had never been seen before, not talked about, which was the fact that the French Navy were actually escorting boats into British waters and effectively handing them over to Border Force. And I did this because the story just wasn't getting enough publicity. Well, I think my actions did help the rest of media to start looking at this. Well, today I went back into the English Channel, and I have to say, from 4:30 this morning, all of our resources were being used. Border Force, lifeboats, another very, very busy day. 1,000 people came in through that Dover reception centre in the previous 3 days. We don't yet have a tally for today, but believe me, it will be in the hundreds again. What I saw today out there absolutely confirmed that despite the deal, and yet another deal that Priti Patel did with the French government yesterday, whereby we agreed to hand over another £50 million, still the French Navy are escorting migrant boats into British waters. It seems that the more migrants that come, the more money we give the French government. I think there's something very wrong with it. I don't think we should be paying them a penny piece, given the way they're behaving. But please have a look at what I saw in the English Channel this morning. OK, so you can see just over there, there's a migrant boat coming, absolutely rammed to the gunwales. I don't know how many on that, 20, 30, I would think, something like that. And there is Hermorvan, French naval vessel that is escorting this dinghy, and in a couple of hundred yards' time, it'll be gone, because that boat will be in British waters, and it's no longer a French problem, it's a British problem. Priti Patel, I want you to look at this clip. Can you please tell me why you've just given the French another 50 million when they're using that money to pay their Royal Navy to escort illegal craft into British waters? This needs answering. We can actually hear the migrants on the boat talking. They've all got life jackets, 25 to 30 on there, probably paying £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 each. So work out the numbers. Every one of those boats is worth big six-figure money to the traffickers. And there's our French naval friend dropping them over the line into United Kingdom waters. Isn't that nice of them?
Separation zone. It's a southwest lane, northeast lane, which is French, southwest of the UK. If you come down, United Kingdom waters. Right, and just move it down there. There it is, France, United Kingdom, and these well inside United Kingdom one.
It would appear their engine has broken down. Now, whether they've run out of fuel or it's an engine failure, I don't know. It is a very calm day, so Border Force are on their way, but Border Force have been overwhelmed this morning. A huge number of boats again today. We even found a vessel a few minutes ago with 13 people in it with no engine. 13 people simply with oars. So this is completely off the scale. These people here are in no danger. Border Force will be with them in 10 or 15 minutes. But we're looking again, I would quite confidently predict, at hundreds of people again today coming through the port of Dover illegally. So Border Force have now got a new vessel. Here it is, Hurricane. It was working on wind farms. Why have they got a new boat? Well, frankly, they simply haven't got room to put everybody on. The other day, one of the lifeboats just simply couldn't take 88 people on board, and so they literally had to follow the boats until they went onto the shore. This is out of control, and I tell you what, in a few weeks' time, that boat won't be big enough either. So there we saw the French Navy escorting that boat into British waters, and we proved it on the plotter with that map that you saw. I made reference there to the other site that we saw. I mean, have a look at these pictures. It is quite extraordinary. So there's a boat. No one's got a life jacket. There's no engine on the back of it. There are 13 guys in it, I suspect from Africa, just with a couple of oars rowing across the English Channel. I mean, the whole thing is complete and utter madness. And going that route and get across one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, quite extraordinary. Two things I will say on it. Number one, it is a miracle that we haven't as yet had a major disaster, but given that some of the new boats are over 11 metres long and can take 70 or more people, and they're literally put together with bits of plywood and glue around a hull that is very, very weak. It's only a matter of time, I think, before we have a major disaster, a major human disaster in the English Channel. And the other thing I want to say is this. These numbers are exploding. Already, more people have come into the UK illegally across the Channel than came in the whole of 2020. I said a few weeks ago I thought 20,000 would come. I now think it will be 30,000. I've got no doubt about that, because nothing so far that the Home Secretary has done, despite strong words, has changed anything.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.